Welcome. This is a quick video to explore unions, relationships, and metadata in Tableau. First, I'm going to open up the file that we have been using in class. So I'm going to, since it's a Microsoft Excel file, I'm going to choose Microsoft Excel. I would then browse to the file and select it and then click Open. Now, what is a union? A union implies that you want to combine multiple data sets that have the same variables but different observations. In order to create a union, you take the new union and you drag it onto the stage. And then all of our databases have the same variables. I can select each one of those tables. And then I'm going to deselect the scores because the scores table has different variables. And I'm going to drag them over into our box and then click OK. This combines all of our tables into one single table. Now notice that the baskets is empty, and then also notice that it added a variable called sheet, which tells us where the specific row of data came from. In order to bring the baskets into this database, what I can do is also create a relational database. And I can do that by taking the scores table and dragging it onto the stage. And by default, Tableau is going to look for a relationship between these two tables. And you can see right here the relationship that it found. It found that the project is in the union database and the project is in the scores database. So it has said that, hey, these two variables of project are the same, they're equal to each other, and through that it is linking these two databases together. Now, the other thing I want to show you is what is metadata and how can I edit it while here in the stage. If I click into the union database, I can see now all of the variables and I can make changes before I start any type of analysis or data visualization. So for instance, let's look at our directions. One of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to code gender into this male and female. In order to do that, we can simply take the gender and create what's called groups. So if I click the down arrow or if I right click it, I can come down here and say create group, which then gives me all of my options and I can make a group. So if I wanted to select F and female and then hit group, and then I can name that group and I'll call it female. Same thing with the males. I'm going to select the M and the male, and this time I'll right click it and choose group. And I'm going to call that group male and hit enter. And then I click OK. And what you'll notice now is all the way over to the end, we have a new variable called gender group, and it's all only male and female. Additionally, I want to clean the week variable and the day variable into numeric variables. There is a function inside of Tableau that's called split. And by default, what is Tableau going to do? It's going to look for a natural way to split these variables. So I can, again, choose the down arrow or right click, and I'm going to choose split. And then if I scroll over to the right, it has now created the split variable, which they called week, and it is just the numeric piece. I can do the same thing for days, and I'm going to right click it this time and choose split. And then I'm going to go over, and now you will notice that it has broken it into two variables, the day variable, which just says the days, and then the actual numeric variable. Now, notice that the day variable has these decimal points off of it, which is indicating that it is actually a float variable or a numeric variable, that Tableau is seeing this as a number. And contrast that with the week variable, which is on the left side of the column, and it doesn't have any decimal points. And so what we're going to do now is edit these two. The first thing I'm going to do is with the day-split. I don't like that name. So I'm going to just click the down arrow and I'm going to click, I can either click edit or I can click rename. I'm going to click edit because I want to show you what the calculation was. So notice it said float, which is basically a type of decimal. And then it split the day at the space and it pulled out the numeric value. So I'm going to just rename this days with an S to distinguish it between day and days. And then I want to notice that it has a float call on it. So I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to do the same thing to weeks, but I want to see what Tableau did by default. And notice here it used a function called trim. What that means is it is capturing the same thing. It's capturing the number, but it's storing it not as a number. It's storing it basically as text. And so to fix that, I'm going to add a float call on top of it. So float, open my parentheses, and then I need to come at the back and close my parentheses. I should see the calculation is valid. Same thing though, I want to get rid of the weird variable name, so I'm just going to call this weeks with an S. Click apply, I click OK. And then notice now that my variable is now a number and it has the decimal points after it. Again, I don't need this variable, the day split, which just gives me the days. And so I'm going to go ahead and delete this variable. Delete. Okay, so now I want to show you a couple more things that we can do. So now that I have these two variables, let's go jump back over here to our directions, and I said create this time to first purchase. And in class we said, hey, I could either keep it in days or weeks. If I do this calculation, it is keeping it in weeks. It would be the number of weeks plus a decimal for the days. And this time, let's say instead of doing it this way, let's multiply week times 7 and then add the days, and then it will be time of first purchase in the unit of days. So let's create that variable. So to do that, again, I'm going to click, now I need the two numeric variables that we just created, weeks and days, and I'm going to right click one of them, and I'm going to choose create calculated field. And I'm going to call it whatever I said, time of first purchase. And I'm going to append it with days. Hey, this is going to be in the unit of days. And so I'm going to take the number of weeks and I'm going to multiply it times 7, and then I'm just going to add the days. So I can do this by just start typing it, D-A-Y, and then when I see, hey, this is my calculated field for days. And then again, please note that the original variable day, notice that it says ABC. That's telling us that that's a text field. Okay, and that's the one that had the number of days plus the units days written in it. We can't do any calculations with that, and that's why we needed to pull out the number by itself, and that's this variable with the S on it, days. So now we have the time of first purchase is weeks times the number 7. There's 7 days in a week plus the days. And then notice that it says that my calculation is valid, so I'm going to click OK. And so now I have that variable also. There's a few more things that I can do in the metadata that I want to show you also. If I scroll over to 3 of these variables, holiday, weekend, and sale, each one of these, notice that there's a number sign above them. That is saying that Tableau thinks that these are numbers. In actuality, these are actually just categories. In each of these categories, they're basically a yes, no, where 0 means no and 1 means yes. Now, I can actually code those as the 0 is a no and the 1 is a yes, but I can't do it if Tableau thinks they're numbers. So if I click on the number and then come down to string, now Tableau sees this as basically a categorical variable, and I'm going to do that for all 3 variables. And now that they are categorical variables, I actually get a new option. I can click the down arrow and I can choose aliases. And what this is it allows me to put labels onto the actual numeric values. And so by editing the aliases, I can click on the 0 and say, hey, this means no. I can click on the 1 and I can say this means yes. And I can click OK. Now notice now that instead of the 0s and the 1s, I'm seeing the yeses and the nos. And again, I can do that for all 3 variables now. Now, I do want to show you one last thing. If I go into the sheet 1, notice that I can see all of my variables. In addition, I can see all of my variables that are inside of the scores, and I can see all of my variables that are inside the union table. If I want to take the table name and drag it and double click it and bring it over, I can immediately see everyone's who's in the table. Now, if you remember the baskets, if I wanted to bring it over, and I could say, what is the average score for the two baskets of each person? I can bring it and drag it into the middle, and then notice that it says, hey, the sum of the baskets. And if I don't want to look at the sum, I can click the down arrow and choose how they're going to do this aggregation. So notice that I can choose between the sum, the average, the median, the count distinct, and a few more options. For right now, I'm going to choose the average, and now I can see, each person's average of their two scores.